This new Netflix animation is a mix of Mulan, John Wick, Kill Bill, and Samurai Jack, but is it as good as people say? Let's find out. So guys, how are you? I hope you are well. I am the Monio, the interdimensional demon, who talks the most about Netflix animations on YouTube, and you are on my channel. Blue Eye Samurai is an American animation produced by Netflix, which tells the story of a mixed-race samurai, called Mizu, who despite having a Japanese appearance, has blue eyes, which betray his ethnic mix, at a time when Japan closed to non-Japanese people, which makes people treat Mizu as an aberration, as an impure being who has no value. But Mizu becomes an extremely skilled samurai, who wants revenge against the people responsible for his suffering, and even without knowing for sure who her father is, she swears that she will kill the 4 Western men who were in Japan at the time of her birth. It's an extremely simple but very well executed premise that reminded me of the John Wick films, as Mizu is so skilled that she becomes a legend as she faces and overcomes increasingly absurd challenges. Firstly, I would like to clarify that I love this series, and although it has some flaws that I will talk about in a moment, for me it is one of the best things that Netflix has ever produced, and just warning you that this video will have light spoilers, but nothing that compromises your experience. So let's talk about the thing that draws the most attention in the series, which is the fact that Mizu is a woman. Yes, Mizu is a woman at a time when women had a role of total submission, and in my opinion, this narrative decision makes the character even more interesting and complex, since her existence as a samurai further challenges the society in which she lives, and she also has a physical disadvantage, since if she were a man, she would be physically stronger, and that makes your journey even more challenging. Topics such as the role of women in Japanese society, ethics and morality, samurai, prejudice, corruption, everything is present here, in this important historical period, which shaped much of what Japan is to this day. Mizu's story is very well constructed, and the series uses several very interesting narrative resources to guide the story of her past, her journey of revenge, and even the time when she once tried to lead an ordinary life and be happy. Mizu's childhood and training is portrayed through flashbacks to her past, and these flashbacks are shown at the right time, and perfectly complement what is happening in the present, and many parallels are made between the current narrative and the way she learned to forge swords, and to handle them. And there are very interesting metaphors that are used to identify the protagonist's conflict. For example, in a scene, in the first episodes, the sword forger, and Mizu's adoptive father, explains that if you make a sword, the metal cannot be 100% pure, as some impurities are necessary for the sword to be strong, and this is a perfect metaphor for the character Mizu, who is seen as impure, but this makes her more strong. In addition to the very well-written protagonist, we have supporting characters who are equally well-written, and with their own dilemmas, but who complement the main story very well. One of the most impressive things about the series is its visual style, using a style that at first seems to be influenced by Spider-Verse, but when you look more closely, you will realize that the animation has actually achieved its own style, which is highly stylized, mixing 2D and 3D animation in a very organic way, and despite being an American production, there is a lot of anime influence here, both in the narrative and in the way the scenes are directed. Overall, the art direction is quite surprising, especially in terms of the stylization of what is shown, with many things represented through painted arts, woodcuts, puppet theater, among other things that help convey the atmosphere of Edo period Japan, as well as the historical recreation, which is impressive. Seriously guys, watch the making of videos of the series, and you will understand what I'm talking about, especially in relation to production details that help convey credibility, with each frame of the animation very well detailed and full of care. The design of each of the characters is quite different, with each one having their own visual identity in the drawing style, mainly in their faces, and even having their own mannerisms, allowing each one to be unique, not just in their personalities. The sets are a true spectacle, with beautiful visual compositions, vibrant colors, and camera and photography angles, which are often cinematic. The series has incredible action scenes, extremely well directed and choreographed. I recently spoke here on the channel about the Onimusha series, and how much it positively discarded itself in the action scenes, and how much I liked it. In Blue Eye Samurai, all these expectations are met with very fluid scenes, and with a good use of slow cameras, to emphasize some movements, and the direction of these fights is very inspired by films like Kill Bill. At a certain point, even the Kill Bill music is played during the fight. Violence is an element that is present both in the fights and in the series in general, and the series is actually very violent, just as the Netflix rating suggests. There is also a lot of nudity, so it is definitely not a series for children. As I said before, although the series is not an anime, it takes a lot of inspiration from anime, and one of the things that is common in anime is having an episode that stands out from the others, and in this series we have it too, and it is episode 5. The things that happen in this episode in terms of fight, emotional climax, is simply masterful, and it's one of the best things I've watched this year. Seriously, it's very good. I'll avoid spoilers of what happens, but if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. But not everything is perfect. The series has some flaws, many conveniences in the script, with Mizu's assistant always being in the right place at the right time to help her. There is also one thing that bothered me a little, which is the Mizu's excessive injuries. I think it's cool that she gets injured to give the fights more realism and credibility. The problem is that at times she is injured to such an extent that it is difficult to believe that it would be humanly possible for someone injured in that way to be able to do everything she does afterwards. It's almost as if the series forgot about some injuries over time, and the character acted as if she wasn't injured. Another thing I didn't like was the final fight against the villain, as he seemed to be a character in the style of Wilson Fisk, a character who has no fighting skills, but facing him is challenging due to his size, strength, and resistance. But when facing him, the villain shows himself to be a great master of the sword, to the point of rivaling Mizu, which for me, doesn't make sense with what was shown of the character, who is a great tycoon, who lives eating, taking expensive wines and partying. It's hard to believe he has all that skill with a sword. There are also moments that don't make much sense from a practical point of view to me, such as the moment when Vision is going to attack a character, and Mizu stops him by attacking the weapon instead of mortally wounding him, as she has already shown herself to be perfectly capable of that. Anyway, although I think the series has some flaws, they are few compared to the final product. As I already said, I simply loved Blue Eye Samurai, and I consider it one of Netflix's best original animations, along with Arcane, which also it's incredible. And for those who have already watched it, know that the second season has already been confirmed by Netflix, which makes perfect sense, given the way the series ends, showing that Mizu still has a long way to go before achieving her goals. But what about you? Have you watched Blue Eye Samurai? What did you think of the series? Leave it in the comments, and if you like the content, subscribe to follow the next videos. Until next time, my people, demonic hugs.